Now, hello, yes, there we go. Shall I ask that question again? Do we have enough space? There is some space there. Yeah, okay, people are putting their thumbs up, thank you. So if somebody does arrive, in fact, we moved some of the seating away from the front because so few people were here at 1:30. We thought maybe the room would be a bit empty, but actually it's amazing. It's amazing to see so many people here. So welcome to Parinirvana Day Festival. I'm going to have to get it close. Thank you. Okay, so hello and welcome to Parinirvana Day. My name is Mokshajoti, and I'm co-leading this afternoon festival with Varasaki, who's sitting to the left of me, and a host of other people who've helped set this up, but more of that later. What I wanted to do to start with is to have an arriving practice, a short meditation to arrive here as fully as we can, leave the journey, whatever has taken place this morning, see if we can leave it at the door and come into this space as much as you can, as fully as you can. Okay. Eyes open or closed, the invitation is there. If you want to have your eyes open, feel free. In a moment, yeah. But being comfortable, that's the thing. So arriving into this space, the space that you're sitting in or lying in, whether it's a chair, whether it's cushions. Noticing your breath. Noticing our bodies as they are supported by the floor, by the chair. So bringing our attention back to this present moment. Here we are at the beginning of Parinirvana Festival. Noticing how you're feeling at this moment. Being aware of your posture, the posture you've chosen. Maybe aware of where your hands are resting. If you notice any tightness or tension, see if you can release that. See if you can soften into that. And coming back to the breath, just follow a breath in. Follow a breath out. Maybe do the same again, another breath in, another breath out. See if we can settle into this space, into this room. Our friends, our sangha members sitting beside us. And there may even be some people on Zoom looking in, watching. And of course, our mind will wander. And when we notice that, see if we can gently bring it back here into this moment. So we can be as fully present as possible. And in a moment, we're going to bring this practice, this arriving practice, to a close. So, in whatever way works for you, gently opening your eyes, maybe gently moving your body, whatever. And when you're ready, coming back into this room in your own time. So another way to arrive more fully is to salute the shrine. So I invite you to salute the shrine. Namo Buddhaya. Wow, it's great to see so many people in the room. And it feels a real privilege and an honor to be sitting here again. I think this is the third year that Varasaki and I have been asked back, so obviously maybe we're doing something okay, but let's not do anything to spoil that to begin with, okay? Anyway, great to see so many people. So Parinirvana Day, we have a few hours together, we're here till 5 o'clock. So a little bit about Parinirvana, just a little bit. So the Buddha gained enlightenment, gained nirvana at the age of about 35, as the story goes. And then he spent the next 45 years teaching in India there. And at the age of 80, he died, yes. He gained parinirvana, pari meaning achieves complete nirvana. So I've written down, I've got a few notes to just keep me on track here. took this out of What is the Dharma, thanks to Sangha. So the attainment of supreme nirvana, the ultimate peace beyond conditioned things, eternal, complete, and self-illuminating. So the Buddha's body, finished at that point. So at the age of 80, Parinirvana was achieved. So the festival is an opportunity, I suppose, an awareness of, well, for me, I could just speak personally, of bringing me to this present moment in my life. Where am I at? What's going on? Of course, all things change according to Buddhism, and I'm 64 now, so I'm moving into the latter part of my life in some ways, and I'm not saying that in a morbid way. It's more like, well, just a realistic view of, well, here I am at the age of 64, still feel very well and fine, but what is my future? How much is there of my future? I do not know. But I feel that this festival, as we've come to this day, I've been reflecting on quite a bit about me, but also about several of my friends that have passed in the last year. So the festival has really just brings me to that point of, okay, my own mortality, but my own life, and also the loss of some loved ones, but also the celebration of many loved ones that are still in my life. So these reflections have led me to this point, and I'm sure maybe as you're sitting here, you've been reflecting a little bit on your own experience, your own life, but also some of those who are no longer in your lives. So I feel it's like a precious moment. It is a very significant festival. There's 4 festivals in the Buddhist calendar, and this is the first of them, the Parinirvana Festival. And so a precious moment for us to come together, to be with one another, to honour one another. In fact, that is part of the talk we're going to hear this afternoon. So we are going to honour ourselves, being together here, but also honour those who are not with us any longer. You'll see on the shrine, we have some photographs of people who have passed this last year, or maybe even longer than that. So please feel free to have a look at those at some point. I'll tell you what we're going to do this afternoon in a moment. I'm going to say, this is a slightly left field thing, but I wanted to tell you a little story which has sort of come into my head just the last few days, really. And this involves a chap called Steve Wright. Now, Steve Wright's been a DJ on the radio for 40 years. He was in Radio 1 and Radio 2, so maybe many of you might never have heard of him, but maybe some of you have heard of him. Anyway, he died Tuesday this week at the age of 69, out of the blue. And so there's been lots and lots of celebration of him on Radio 2 this week. And there was a program this morning on Radio 2, which I'm a lover of Radio 2 and have been for many years, where they were celebrating the music that he loved, but also the qualities in his life. And I just wanted to share a couple of things that stood out for me from what people were saying, and it sort of links in a little bit to what Varasaki is going to be talking about a bit later, but it just felt like it was very present in my mind. I've been thinking about him quite a bit. So I sort of grew up with him, from the 70s right through until now. He's been around playing music, and I've listened to the radio all those years, either through my parents or, myself now choosing to put the radio on because I enjoy a variety of sounds, etc. He was witty, professional, and very kind, and lots of people talked about his kindness, and that he inspired many people to start working in media, just by his nature, really. But the 2 things that stood out, which I liked, the first one was that lots of people said he was the soundtrack of their lives, and I thought that was a really lovely way to describe it. And And for me, yes, he was the soundtrack of my life in many ways, particularly the 70s and 80s, maybe not so much these days, some of that. And I thought, well, that's like our friends and family are the soundtracks to our lives, aren't they? They are there, the constants in our lives, until they are no longer with us, until they pass. But I sort of really like that sort of analogy or metaphor that people in our lives are there, the soundtrack of them, and enjoying that, appreciating them, enjoying their sound, inverted commas, if you want to sort of see it like that. Yeah. My sister passed away a few years ago, 3 years now, and so often I've wanted to have a conversation with her. It's one of those things, audio, sound, the connection that you have through chatting. And I do talk to her all the time, actually. I really do, around the house, whenever. Say, hi, Sam, how are you doing, that sort of thing. But I would love a conversation. So it's only one-sided, in my view, but I would love a conversation. And then the second thing that came out of all this celebration of Steve Wright was connection, that people felt very connected through the Radio 2 family, in a way, but him. Because he did lots of, he did love songs on a Sunday morning, and he's done that for so many years that people have requested a song for their loved one, for their family, for anything special in their family, and he's read it out when he's been able to. So that's meant a very big thing to those particular individuals, and many of them wrote in or emailed in or even did sending voice notes these days to the station to say, this is what I got from Steve Wright, just connecting us into, human beings and love and connection with one another. And I really liked the program this morning because it was quite moving to hear how many lives his life had touched over the years. Many, many, many hundreds and thousands, actually, probably over the years. So I thought I just wanted to share you that little story, actually. So, this afternoon, what are we going to do? This is the program. In a moment or so, I'm going to pass over to Vorosaki, who's going to talk to us. Honouring life, honouring connection. Is it going to be maybe 25 minutes, 30 minutes, something like that? We're going to have a tea break about 3. Just check it. Yeah, that would be about right. We're going to have a 20-minute tea break. If you wish to stay in the shrine room, because we're going to keep the shrine room quiet, then feel free to do that. If you just feel moved by the atmosphere, you just want to have that sort of quiet space, then of course, please do. If you want to go downstairs and have a cup of tea and a chat, obviously it's your choice. But yeah, we're going to keep the shrine room quiet. So when you come back in, just, I suppose, respecting that. I'll lead a metta practice, a sort of basic metta practice at 3:20 approximately for about 25 minutes. So it'll be self, bringing family and friends and loved ones to mind, and then metta flowing out into the world. And as we come to the end of that sort of third stage, then Vishankar and Steve are going to, we'll see some images of people who've passed in this last year or even longer, and Vishankar will be reading out the names of people who have been sent in for us to read out and to honour, to bring to mind. So we're going to do that at the end of that metta practice, and we're going to just sort of sit quietly and listen to those. Probably take us to about 10 past 4 maybe, and we're going to have a threefold puja to finish our afternoon. And in the context of that threefold puja, there are going to be readings from the Parinirvana Sutta, which Sarah is going to read for us. And there will be an opportunity to make offerings to the shrine, and also a little space at the end where we're just going to sit, hear another poem, have another sit, and we're going to finish with transference of merit and self-surrender, and that will take us up to 5 o'clock. Okay. So I'm going to pass over to Vorosaki.
Can everyone hear me? A bit louder. How about that? A bit more? Okay. Let you go a bit higher. How is? How is? Excuse me. Right. Is that all right? Yeah. Good. Good. Thank you. Ah, gosh, it's a delight to see a packed shrine room, and it's very meaningful to be here because I haven't been in a busy shrine room since pre-COVID times, which feels a long time. So many of you I have seen become mitras. I haven't met you in person, but I've okay, there we go. Please wave. Oh, that's probably better. I'm aware it might not be as pleasant sometimes online listening with the microphone, so I'll try and be sensitive to the noise. Here's Dharma Markova, a poem. I will not die an unlived life. I will not live in fear of falling or catching fire. I choose to inhabit my days, to allow my living to open me, to make me less afraid, more accessible, to loosen my heart until it becomes a wing, a torch, a promise. I choose to risk my significance, to live so that that which came to me as seed goes to the next as blossom, and that which came to me as blossom goes on as fruit. That's Dharma Markova. So that opening line, I will not die an unlived life, that's quite a stirring statement to me, and I'm sure it is to several of you here in the room. It's a stirring call for action. And it's about honouring our lives, it's about honouring potential. And when I think I will not die an unlived life, I also think of the Buddha. And I'm thinking about the time when he was living with his family in quite a comfortable life, and he saw the four sights. So he saw for the first time, he really took on board, so it said, he saw sickness, he saw aging, and he saw death. And he had a connection with that, a living connection with the four sights, but he also saw a wandering monk, and I will not die an unlived life. There's something that inspired the Buddha to take that path of courage, of renunciation, of uncertainty and fortitude, and also sensitivity. So he led a life of deep sensitivity and tried to meet people really well, and the way he could do that was refining mindfulness, refining wisdom, refining compassion. And we're all trying to do that as well. So the Buddha has this long, well-lived life and legacy, honouring precious life and connection with what's most meaningful. And maybe that's why many of us are here today. We've come to the Buddhist Centre because we want a life of meaning, we want a life that is ethical, that leads to creative change, ethical, positive change, impacting the world in a positive way. And this is a path of creativity. It requires of us a real creative responsiveness to the moment, every single moment. And we're not there yet. But right at the heart of Buddhism and the Buddha's path was this irreversible creativity. So how can we stay alive to what inspires and lifts our heart? What makes us feel alive and feel deeply connected? Because feeling alive depends on feeling connected. Excuse me. A living connection with our practice, a living connection with what is most meaningful, a living connection with what inspires and guides. And the Dharma, the three jewels are very alive. The Dharma is not dry and dusty theory. It's a lived and living practice. The sangha is not a noun, it's actually more like a verb. We sangha. Sangha doesn't mean anything unless it's lived out in connection. And our connection with the Buddha is still alive today. His teachings are alive in us, and we can feel a direct connection with him. But this is honouring a living connection. And we do that with each other in various contexts. We do that in our study groups, on retreat, one-to-ones, through the path of friendship. And several people couldn't be here today who wanted to be. So two of my close friends, Tara Maitri and Mokshadeepa, both of whom may be listening or may listen later, but they have parents in hospital who were taken into hospital later. And this is the reality of our lives, isn't it? The Four Reminders tells us life has inevitable difficulties. No one can control it all. And we learn this. Life is our greatest teacher. Life will have difficulties, but how we can respond is a creative choice. And that is what the Buddha gave us, is creative choice. It's so important in the midst of our triumphs and tragedies and everything in between. So sometimes, like the Buddha, something might have happened to us, some significant event or moment of intensity, and sometimes it might feel like a fracture in our lives. There might be a before and an after. That can happen with illness. It can happen especially with the death of a loved one. And it might feel like a moment of fracture. It brings us up to the reality of impermanence. And I'd like to share with you a quote from Suleika Jawad, who lives in Brooklyn. She became ill at the age of 22. She was diagnosed with leukemia and needed a bone marrow transplant. And there she was, a graduate from Princeton University, wanting to become a war correspondent, feeling at 22 her whole life was in front of her, endless choices. And sadly, she received this life-changing diagnosis with a possibility of only something like a 30% chance of living through a bone marrow. Separate to that, she was of mixed heritage, and there was difficulty finding a match on the bone marrow register. And finally, her brother was her donor. So there she was in a hospital bed, and this is a quote from her. I learned early on that one of the great unfairnesses of cancer is how uncomfortable it can be for the people around you. There's a reason why, when someone is befallen with tragedy, our first response is often, I have no words. And sometimes when you don't have words, when you're worried about finding the exact right words, you end up saying nothing, nothing at all, and staying away because of it. That was something I found really heartbreaking early on after my diagnosis. that some of the people I expected to be there for me were not going to be able to be for different reasons. And there was this sense of feeling increasingly disconnected from the land of the living. And for about a year, I very much went into a kind of self-imposed retreat. I didn't know how to face my reality, which made it hard to explain it to the people around me who hadn't lived it. And really, that's what sent me on the path to writing, trying to find these words. So basically what she did was, in the 4 years of her treatment, she contacted the New York Times and sent an article in about her experience as a cancer patient and donor. And the New York Times said, oh, yeah, we can print your article. And because she was facing death, she said that helped her to become more brazen. And she asked the New York Times editor, actually, I'd really like to write a column and a blog. And that's what she did from a hospital bed. So she had a really creative response to what was a fracture that she described in her life, that enabled her to be more connected with people. And this column was very successful, and hundreds of people wrote to her. That's what she found out when she first wrote in. So she was affecting other people who had experienced a fracture. And her blog was called Life Interrupted, because she felt her life had been interrupted. So she chose to do something very altruistic. And then after recovering, and when the leukemia went into remission, she travelled. She took on a 15,000-mile journey across the United States, and she met with various individuals who she'd made friends with, who'd responded to her blog. And some of those who'd also experienced life interrupted. One of those was a prisoner on death row. One of those was a mother who'd lost her son when she was very young, when her son was young. She had this life, this living connection with these other people who'd gone through tragedy, and she just responded so well to that, and I found that really, really moving. And what she said was, she wrote a book which was a bestseller called Between Two Kingdoms, because what she said was she's had to learn to navigate between the life of the sick, the kingdom of the sick, and the kingdom of the well. And some of us might be experiencing that if we've experienced grief. It might feel there's a kingdom of the newly bereaved and people grieving in their own individual ways, in our own individual ways, and the kingdom of people who've gone through grief or who aren't experiencing it. And I've been very moved by how the link was made between those two kingdoms. She was quite, that healed the fracture. That healed the fracture. So just bear with me, I'm looking for my quotes. Never mind. So there's a quote that I sent round to my chapter, because I meet every week with friends who've been ordained, and I've known them for many, many years. I first came along to the centre in 1997. That's when I met Moksha Jyoti. We have these friendships going way back, and over periods of time where we see our triumphs and tragedies. And there's a wonderful film called A Beautiful Day in the Neighbourhood that I'd highly recommend. It's really, really beautiful, and it profiles Fred Rogers, who was a bit like a national treasure, a bit like maybe David Attenborough for us, but he's like that to people who've grown up in the States. And he had a program, public service broadcast program, focused on children, and sometimes children who'd gone through tragedy. And what he said was anything that's human is mentionable, and anything that's mentionable is more manageable, can become more manageable. And sometimes we have experiences that don't feel mentionable because they can feel overwhelming, they can feel too much to bear. This unbearable aspect sometimes of being human. And I really love that, because in our friendships, through our friendships, anything that's human is mentionable. Anything that's mentionable becomes more manageable. And that's what we find over time through our friendships in the sangha, where we become more real with each other, we share what's really going on. It's such a blessing to be able to be yourself with good friends. And Sangha Rakshita set up the movement to enable that to happen. He's really encouraged us to meet in friendship. And we're bearing the fruits of that. So sometimes we have our own personal fractures, or seeming fractures. This is what the Dharma does. The Dharma heals these fractures, and I'll come back to that. And the role of metta and spiritual friendships in that is key. So I'm thinking in particular one person who was greatly loved and still is loved in our sangha, even though she's not, her body's, her presence no longer with us in that form, but she's very much with us, and that's Sarah Savannah. And I remember this key event in 2015, early 2015, where she'd had news that she'd been invited to be ordained. And we had a bond because we both have and had rheumatoid arthritis, a connection. And I met her in the meeting room upstairs. I brought a cake from Marks and Spencer's, a reduced Christmas cake. And I wanted to celebrate the fact she'd been invited to be ordained. And there she was, that high of her life. And at the same time, she told me, I've just been diagnosed with interstitial lung disease because of a medication that we were both taking. And I didn't really understand the full import of what she was saying, but I knew it was significant. She was already having problems breathing. And there she was, looking forward to her ordination retreat in Spain, and also facing the reality, actually, of her mortality. When I looked on Wikipedia, I saw it had a limit, it was a life-limiting illness, and it would be progressive. And then I shared a room with her on retreat, and I saw other difficulties that she'd been facing to do with her feet and pain, a lot of pain. And she had this great humour, this spontaneity. She was so witty and alive and bright. And so when I think of her, the connection is still very much alive. And that's what I want to celebrate today. Just because people are no longer with us physically, we can still have a very alive and living connection with them. And we wouldn't be ourselves if they hadn't been in our lives. All of those people have helped us become who we are now. And so that is worth honouring, these living connections with people. So, looping back to Suleika Jawad, 10 years after first being diagnosed with leukemia, there she is, married to John Baptiste, who is a very talented musician. There's a film about their life called American Symphony. It's a beautiful, beautiful documentary that I watched with Padmadarshini on New Year's Day. It's very moving, very inspiring, very positive. And on the same day that he was notified he'd been nominated for 11 Grammys, musical awards, on the same day, Suleika was going back into hospital to begin chemotherapy again. And what they describe together in this film are the triumphs and tragedies of life and everything in between, and this is like a symphony of life. It's a symphony of life. We can't control what happens to us on some level, but we can control, or we can be aware of our creative responsiveness to whatever happens. And there they've made this documentary. It's on Netflix, so if you can find someone who's got a Netflix account, not borrow their password, but watch it with them. It's just a delight to watch with someone. And what they say is survival is a creative act. I've really felt that at different times in my life when I've had to dig deep. Sometimes I just haven't wanted to live at different times because life has felt too much to bear. And it's felt that survival really is a creative act. And thankfully, the Dharma and the three jewels have been in my life for 27 years now, and have helped me get through some really, really painful, seemingly unbearable times in life that haven't been in my control. And I'm so grateful to the Buddha and to Sangharakshita and all my friends, and to the sangha, just for creating a space where we can practice and move beyond self-created suffering. Because essentially that's what the Buddha showed us the way of, is freedom from self-created suffering. So we may have come across the first and second arrow teachings, which can be succinctly embodied in the phrase, pain is inevitable, suffering is a choice. So pain is inevitable, suffering is a choice. And the more deeply we practice, we see this. And apparently that is an aphorism that is also shared in Alcoholics Anonymous. So I'll come now to another quote. And this is a poet, Marie Howe. So Marie Howe had a younger brother, Johnny, and they had a very close bond. She said that when she was 16, they lived in a big house. Her parents both had 9 siblings, I think. She had about 100 cousins. It was a very busy and active house. And she was 11 years older than Johnny, so when she was 16 and needed to have some quiet space or work through some things, and he was about 5, she'd invite him out for a walk and they'd go around the streets holding hands together. And he was just a great comfort and bond, and they shared this bond until he died. So when he was 22, he was diagnosed with HIV, HIV positive. He was a member of AA and he became sober at 23. And then he died at 28 of AIDS-related complications in the 80s when a lot of young gay men were dying. And Marie had a very close relationship with him right up until his death. They spoke about 5 times a week. And he used to say to her, pain is inevitable, suffering is a choice. And he really meant it, and she saw that. And so even on his deathbed, when he had so many different symptoms going on, he said to her, this is not a tragedy, Marie, I am happy. Isn't that something to share? This is not a tragedy, Marie, I am happy. And the interviewer I heard this conversation with said, do you think he really meant that? And she said, yes, our relationship was so close that I knew him so well that he wouldn't try and pretend to me. Yes, he was happy. And this is a poem, this is a letter that she wrote to him. What she said is initially, she said, when Johnny died, it was a terrible loss to all of us. As you know, as everybody knows, you think, my life is changed so utterly, I don't know how to live it anymore. And then you find a way. This is her letter to him. It's called What the Living Do. Johnny, the kitchen sink has been clogged for days. Some utensil probably fell down there. And the Drano won't work but smells dangerous. And the crusty dishes have piled up, waiting for the plumber I still haven't called. This is the everyday we spoke of. It's winter again. The skies are deep, headstrong blue, and the sunlight pours through the open living room windows because the heat's on too high in here, and I can't turn it off. For weeks now, driving or dropping a bag of groceries in the street, the bag breaking, I've been thinking, this is what the living do. And yesterday, hurrying along those wobbly bricks in the Cambridge sidewalk, spilling my coffee down my wrist and sleeve, I thought it again, and again later when buying a hairbrush. This is it. Parking, slamming the car door shut in the cold. What you called that yearning, what you finally gave up. We want whoever to call or not call, a letter, a kiss. We want more, and then more of it. But there are moments, walking, when I catch a glimpse of myself in the window glass, say the window of the corner video store, and I'm gripped by a cherishing so deep for my own blowing hair, chapped face, and unbuttoned coat that I'm speechless. I am living. I remember you. I find those words particularly moving when we think about loved ones who are no longer here and anyone who's ever affected our lives, whether they're living or dead. I am living. I remember you. Because most of our living is in the ordinary, everyday life, where we come up against our habits. Our habits continue, and time passes. And how long do we have? Literally, I'm looking, how long do I have as well? So are we aware we're living? Are we aware what keeps us alive of this precious opportunity? And do we bring a beginner's mind to what life is showing us? And are we honouring the lives of those who no longer have the choice? So in one interview I saw with Suleika Jawad and John Baptiste, what she said is after this second bone marrow transplant, she's been told that she'll be on chemotherapy for the rest of her life. And that was a really shocking fact to hear. And in that, her consultant said, I would encourage you to live every day as if it's your last. And what she said is that didn't work for her because she found a kind of grasping and a doom-mongering and a desperation. And so what she said, she and John Baptiste, live every day as if it's your first. And I wonder what response you've had when I heard that. I loved that because that evokes to me the beginner's mind that ultimately that's all we have. Every day is our first in some ways. Nothing is fixed, everything is changing. What we are dragging along with us in our lives and carrying with us, nothing is fixed, everything is in flow. All of us are connected at this moment through the oxygen in the air. In COVID times, we didn't want to know that. That's one of the reasons why I haven't been in this room, in a busy shrine room, and I do have a mask that I might put on afterwards because I'm immunocompromised, and it makes a difference. But the Dharma really heals all fractures. We have the Upekkha Bhavana. It's an aspect of metta practice, and in the Upekkha Bhavana we're encouraged to reflect on the sorrows of our life and other people's lives, and also the joys. And that's the reality. This is the triumphs and the tragedies. And what happens in the midst of that, with the joys and sorrows and everything in between, insight develops more clearly because we recognize that nothing is fixed and everything is in flow. Just like our thoughts, like clouds. When we chant the transference of merits, there's a line in there, my personality throughout my existences. What does that mean? It means that every moment of every day, my personality is not fixed. I'm rebecoming and rebecoming and rebecoming, and that's very liberating to connect with when I'm chanting the transference of merits. And I only realized that on my ordination retreat. There was something that twigged, and I thought, yes, my personality throughout my existences. So Bhante has created Triratna and given us an opportunity to really connect with the Buddha's legacy that is alive to us today. And as the poem, we'll read Donna Markova's poem again, but what we know in terms of ethical awareness and ethical hypervigilance or ethical vigilance. When the Buddha said, with mindfulness strive on, it's specifically mindfulness that has an ethical vigilance with it, because every single action of body, speech and mind counts. Every single action of body, speech and mind helps us re-become a more skillful person, a more open-hearted person, or a tighter person, a more frightened person. And we're all working our own path. There's no right or wrong way to do this. We will come out with words that are not elegant, and there's no such thing as perfect. So when Sulaika Jawad was saying people didn't know how to respond, so they didn't say anything at all, I'd encourage us to just still move towards people suffering, hand on the shoulder. Maybe words aren't what we need at the time, but let's not beat ourselves up if we don't say something correct or just right, because there is no thing as correct or just right. We know that from the Dharma. And here's Bhante. I'll finish on this quote. The creative mind at its highest level is freedom itself. The creative mind, above all else, is the aware mind, the mind that is not asleep, the mind which is awake. And because it is aware, it is really and truly alive. So I think we're going down for a break now. A silent, just in the shrine room. And if you could keep the silence just as you go down the corridor, putting your shoes on. There might be some people who just want to sit with the silence. But you've got a 20 minutes break now, coming back at 20 past.
So, welcome back. So before moving to a practice of the Metta Bhavana, I just wanted to say a few thank yous. It felt like the best time in the afternoon and the most appropriate time. There's been a lot of organising to get this festival organised as it is to this present moment, and I wanted to appreciate those people. To honour those people, actually. So Peter, been on reception, Louise, Joe, Alison, the shrine, Joe and Alison, thanks to Stephen doing the tech, Ellie and Stephen helped setting up. Chandradeepa, who couldn't be here today, is in Stockholm, but he sent me a lovely message and Varasaki this morning to wish us well, and he said he was wearing his white t-shirt, so he's definitely with us in spirit. Tora Maitri was going to read the names of the people who've passed, or the names of the loved ones who've died in the last year or so, but as Varasaki said, her mum is actually poorly, so she's not here today, so I wanted to appreciate her. But Vishankar has very kindly stepped in right at the last minute to do that for us, so I appreciate that very much. Thanks to Sia, who will be doing the readings in the puja, yet to come. And thank you to Varasaki for that really lovely, moving, thoughtful, poignant talk, actually. I found it there's so many lovely threads to it. I want to go back and listen to it again. It's very rich. And I can't believe it that we have a 27-year-old friendship. Really? I think I came to the centre when I was about 5. Okay.
And I also want to say thank you very much to Moksha Jyoti for leading, because, you know, you obviously want to include you as well.
Oh, yes, thank you. Yes, it's me. Me. Thank you. Just going back to Sarah Savannah, who was a dear friend of mine as well. We worked together in Breathworks, so for many, many years, and she didn't live that far away from me. She lived in New Mills. And I used to meet her from time to time. And then when she started getting ill, of course, she couldn't see me so much. But we would be in the office at times, and then I was looking at my phone through the notes in my phone. I think it was after she died. And in the notes it said, Sarah Savannah was here. And she'd obviously picked up my phone when I was in the office with her and just thought she would leave me a note, which really was the spirit of Sarah Savannah. And I can't delete it. Yeah, I feel very fondly towards her. Okay, just one final little announcement in a way. There will be time at the end to photograph the shrine, if you wish to photograph the shrine, okay? So what we're going to do now is move into a period of metta, which I say probably about 20 minutes long, thereabouts. At the end of the sort of the third stage, I will set it up and guide us, and then I will pass over to, and I'll actually say this to Stephen, I'll pass over to Stephen and to Vishankar to do this sort of memorial part of our Parinirvana, to read the names of the loved ones. I'll just be quiet for a while. That will take us however long that takes us. Then we'll have a short pause before I lead a threefold puja, and I'll tell you about that when we get there. But for now, if you want to make yourself comfortable, please do. In meditation, I think you're probably very familiar with this, but I know people, when they first come along to meditation, they have to sit really still. And usually, sitting really still makes us stiff. So feel free to move. If you need to move while this practice is unfolding, then gently move. Do what works for you. And as I say, Eyes open or closed, it's your invitation to how you want to be in this sit and getting comfortable. Actually, could the lights be turned down a little bit, please? Would somebody be kind enough to do that? Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. So finding yourself, here we are back in the shrine room, back in the middle of a Parinirvana festival. Whatever that means to you, each of us. But let's arrive, let's ground ourselves, let's find the chair that we're sitting on, let's find the earth beneath our feet. So a metta practice, metta bhavana, and let's bring ourselves to mind. We always start with ourselves. As we sit here, maybe touching in with our heart. How is our heart at the moment? Sometimes it helps to connect physically that way. You might want to put your hand on your heart and just tune into your experience. Or just find your own way of doing this. So arriving, feeling more settled, even grounded. And that comes, I find, really from being embodied. So coming into your physical experience. Feet on the floor, bottom on the seat or cushion. Noticing your posture. And resting back into that posture of yours. And part of our experience is breathing this breath. So if that works for you, then checking in with your breath. As it flows in and out. And for some the breath can be a bit challenging, so find your own way of feeling grounded, feeling settled. So a few moments of turning the spotlight on ourselves, appreciating the fact we're here, connecting with others, being part of this festival. Can we drop in a well-wishing towards ourselves? As if it's a bit like that pebble that goes into that pond, and the ripples of well-wishing just resonate inside us, connecting with ourselves. If you like the more traditional phrases, may I be well, may I be happy, or you may have a phrase that works particularly for yourself. Again, just dropping that in, allowing it to be there if we can. A sense of appreciation for ourselves, however small or big that may be. So in our own time, we're going to move on to the second stage. So in this stage, bring into mind family, friends, loved ones who are no longer with us, or bring into mind those in our lives who we know have lost somebody this last year or so. And wishing them well. a virtual hug if that helps. Or maybe a sense of warmth radiating from your heart in their direction. As Varasaki said, they may not physically be with us, but we are still connected. So can we honor that connection? Imaginatively bring it alive. Bring the qualities of that person, or animal, or whatever that, or whoever that loved one is to mind. What we loved about them, appreciated. So in our own time, moving on to the third stage. So on this stage, broadening out even further from family, friends, loved ones no longer with us, out into this world this world of ours. This world that is so challenged and difficult at times, and so joyous and uplifting, a real mix. Can we send out that sense of well-wishing, as if we could radiate kindness and care around the globe? Imaginatively placing the world in the palm of your hands. And sending metta in all directions. All human beings want to be happy, don't want to suffer. Can we radiate well-wishing? And just the thought of it is enough. And if that's too much, too big for us to manage at this moment in time, then come back here, come back into this space, into this room, into our posture. Feeling presence with the sangha around us. So I'd like to invite you back here into this room now. So we're going to bring this practice to a close. I'm now going to stop talking in a moment, but going back here, being in the room, I'm going to move on to the part of the festival where we bring to mind people who are not with us, or animals, or any loved ones in the last year or so. So bringing the practice to an end.
Dharma Kasara wants to remember her mother-in-law, Barbara Walsh. She was a force of joy in the world with a light, bright and positive personality and a positive sense of humour. She died on the 14th of August last year, aged 80. Rachel Priest wants to remember her mother, Barbara Priest, who died on the 28th of January this year. Hilary remembers her niece, Catherine Bainbridge, who sadly died of cancer in November last year at the age of 55. Isabel Barron remembers her mother, Marie Henriette Henry, Dayanandi remembers Virachitta, her husband of 15 years. They separated in the early 1990s, and it was through him that Dayanandi came across the Dharma and Triratna. Virachitta helped set up the European Chairs Assembly and was one of its first chairs, as well as being one of the founders of the Birmingham Buddhist Centre, and their first chair also. A deeply significant effect he had on the lives of so many who came along to the Birmingham Centre, particularly in those early days, was profound, and he'll be missed by many people. And Harriet remembers her mother, Pamela Jane Yale, who died 2 years ago this month. Tara Maitri remembers Vajrasara, who died on the 25th of May last year at the age of 59. A radiant, wise, compassionate, funny, brave, wonderful friend to so many. Nadia remembers her brother Michael, who sadly died by suicide in 2003 at the age of 20. Nadia remembers the beauty of his heart, so humble, loving and protective. His smile, his laugh, attention to detail, and big bear hugs. No verbal communication was needed, it was just love. The world felt too much for Michael, and Nadia carries him in her heart every day and in all she does. And we also remember Comfort Ansah, Samson Harris, Nicholas Kwame Azari Bofo, and Sue remembers Maggie Fox,
the final part of our festival, which is a threefold puja. But before that, I must say thanks to Buddha Samagama because I forgot to mention him. Okay. Okay, the threefold puja. I'll just tell you how it's going to work with positivity there. So we're going to have a reading before the puja, and then, of course, the opening reverence, the first part of the puja. Then there's another reading, then reverence to the three jewels, and then another reading. After that, the refuges and precepts in call and response. Then on to the final part of the puja, offerings to the Buddha. After that final part of the puja, Vishankha is going to lead us in the Shakyamuni mantra. That opportunity for us to come forward and light a candle, place it on the shrine, by the shrine, front of the shrine there, rather. And then the final reading from Siya. After all of that. And we're going to have a pause just for a few moments. I will reread that poem that Varasaki read earlier. Just taking in those final few verses from that poem. Again, a short pause. And we'll finish with transference of merit and self-surrender. I imagine that will be in call and response actually, because maybe quite a few people don't know the whole verse. Yeah, so call and response verse. And we will come to an end there and just quietly, well, I'll hit this very silent gong and we can quietly disappear after that, okay? Just one final request. When we do leave, quietly at the end, if you can help put the chairs back, or some of the chairs back, it would be greatly appreciated. Otherwise it's just a couple of people who end up doing it. But that would be a real mindful task, wouldn't it? But please feel free to do that if you can. If you can't, totally understand that as well. Thank you.
Thereupon, the Blessed One, in the forenoon, having got ready, took bowl and robe and went with the community of bhikkhus to the house of Kunda, and there sat down on the seat prepared for him. And he spoke to Kunda, saying, "With the Sakara Madhava you have prepared, Kunda, you may serve me. With the other food, hard and soft, you may serve the community of bhikkhus." "So be it, Lord." And with the Sakara Madhava prepared by him, he served the Blessed One, and with the other food, he served the community of bhikkhus. Thereafter the Blessed One spoke to Kunda, saying, "Whatever Kunda is left over of the Sakara Madhava, bury that in a pit, for I do not see in all this world, with its gods, maras, brahmas, ascetics, brahmins, gods and men, anyone who could eat it and digest it except the Tathagata alone." And Kunda answered the Blessed One, saying, "So be it, Lord." And what remained over of the Sakara Madhava he buried in a pit. Then he returned to the Blessed One, respectfully greeted him, and sat down at one side. And the Blessed One instructed Kunda in the Dharma, and roused, edified, and gladdened him. After this he rose from his seat and departed. And soon after the Blessed One had eaten the meal, a dire sickness fell upon him, even dysentery, and he suffered sharp and deadly pains. But the Blessed One endured them mindfully, clearly comprehending and unperturbed. Then the Blessed One spoke to the Venerable Ananda, saying, "Come, Ananda, let us go to Kusinara." And the Venerable Ananda answered, "So be it, Lord."
The threefold puja. Opening reverence. We reverence the Buddha, the perfectly enlightened one, the shower of the way. We reverence the Dharma, the teachings of the Buddha, which leads from darkness to light. We reverence the sangha, the fellowship of the Buddha's disciples, that inspires and guides.
Then the Blessed One addressed the Venerable Ananda, saying, "Come, Ananda, let us go to the Malasala Grove in the vicinity of Kusinara." "So be it, Lord." And the Blessed One, together with a large company of bhikkhus, went to the Sala Grove. And there he spoke to the Venerable Ananda, saying, "Please, Ananda, prepare for me a couch between the twin sala trees, with the head to the north. I am weary, Ananda, and want to lie down." "So be it, Lord." And the Venerable Ananda did as the Blessed One asked him to do. Then the Blessed One lay down on his right side, in the lion's posture, resting one foot upon the other, and so disposed himself mindfully and clearly comprehending. At that time, the twin sala trees broke out in full bloom, though it was not the season of flowering. And the blossoms rained upon the body of the Tathagata, and dropped and scattered, and were strewn upon it in worship. And celestial mandara flowers and heavenly sandalwood powder from the sky rained down on the body of the Tathagata, and dropped and scattered, and were strewn upon it in worship. And the sound of heavenly voices and heavenly instruments made music in the air out of reverence.
Reverence to the three jewels. We reverence the Buddha and aspire to follow him. The Buddha was born as we are born. What the Buddha overcame, we too can overcome. What the Buddha attained, we too can attain. We reverence the Dharma and aspire to follow it. With body, speech and mind until the end. The truth in all its aspects. The path in all the stages. We aspire to study, practice and realize. We reverence the sangha and aspire to follow it. The fellowship of those who tread the way. As one by one, we make our own commitment. An ever-widening circle. The sangha grows.
Then the Venerable Ananda went into the vihara and leaned against the doorpost and wept. I am still but a learner and still have to strive for my own perfection. But alas, my master, who was so compassionate towards me, is about to pass away. And the Blessed One spoke to the bhikkhus, saying, Where is Ananda? The Venerable Ananda Lord has gone into the vihara and there stands weeping. Then the Blessed One asked a certain bhikkhu to bring the Venerable Ananda to him, saying, Go, bhikkhu, and say to Ananda, Friend Ananda, the Master calls you. So be it, Lord. And that bhikkhu went and spoke to the Venerable Ananda. And the Venerable Ananda went to the Blessed One, bowed down to him, and sat down on one side. Then the Blessed One spoke, saying, Enough, Ananda. Do not grieve. Do not lament. For have I not taught from the very beginning that with all that is dear and beloved there must be change, separation and severance? Of that which is born, come into being, compounded and subject to decay, how can one say, may it not come to dissolution? There can be no such state of things. Now for a long time, Ananda, you have served the Tathagata with loving kindness. In deed, word and thought, graciously, pleasantly, with a whole heart and beyond measure. Great good have you gathered, Ananda. Now you should put forth energy, and soon you too will be free from the taints.
The refuges and precepts in call and response. Namo tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ Saraṇaṃ Gacchāmi. Dhammaṃ Saraṇaṃ Gacchāmi.
Buddhang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi Dharmang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami. Tatyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami. Tatyampi Dharmang saranang gacchami. Tatyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami. Anatipata Veramani Sikhapadang Samadhiyami Adinadana Veramani Sikhapadang Samadhiyami Kamesu Michachara Veramani Sikhapadang Samadhiyami Musavada Veramani Sikhapadang Samadhiyami Suramerya Macha Kamaditana Veramani Sikhapadang Samadhiyami Sadhu 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 With deeds of loving kindness I purify my body with open-handed generosity. I purify my body with stillness, simplicity, and contentment. I purify my body with truthful communication. I purify my speech with mindfulness clear and radiant. I purify my mind. Offerings to the Buddha. Reverencing the Buddha. We offer flowers. Flowers that today are fresh and sweetly blooming. Flowers that tomorrow are faded and fallen. Our bodies too, like flowers, will pass away. Reverencing the Buddha, we offer candles to him who is the light, offer light. From his greater lamp, a lesser lamp we light within us. The lamp of Bodhi shining within our hearts. Reverencing the Buddha, we offer incense. Incense that fragrance pervades the air. The fragrance of the perfect life. Sweeter than incense. Spreads in all directions. Throughout the world.
Muni Muni Mahamuni Shakyamuni Swaha. Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Shakyamuni Swaha. Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Shakyamuni Swaha.
And the Blessed One addressed the bhikkhus, saying, Behold now, bhikkhus, I exhort you, all compounded things are subject to vanish. Strive with earnestness. This was the last word of the Tathagata. And when the Blessed One had passed away, simultaneously with his parinirvana, there came a tremendous earthquake, dreadful and astounding, and the thunders rolled across the heavens. And when the Blessed One had passed away, simultaneously with his parinirvana, Brahma Sahampati spoke this stanza: All must depart. All beings that have life must shed their compound forms. Yes, even one, a master such as he, a peerless being, powerful in wisdom, the Enlightened One, has passed away. Then, when the Blessed One had passed away, some bhikkhus, not yet freed from passion, lifted up their arms and wept, and some, flinging themselves on the ground, rolled from side to side and wept, lamenting, Too soon has the Blessed One come to his parinirvana. Too soon has the Happy One come to his parinirvana. Too soon has the eye of the world vanished from sight. But the bhikkhus who were freed from passion, mindful and clearly comprehending, reflected in this way: Impermanent are all compounded things. How could this be otherwise?
That poem. I will not live. Start again. I will not die an unlived life. I will not live in fear of falling or catching fire. I choose to inhabit my days, to allow my living to open me, to make me less afraid, more accessible. To loosen my heart until it becomes a wing, a torch, a promise. I choose to risk my significance, to live so that which came to me as seed goes to the next as blossom, and that which came to me as blossom goes on as seed. Transference of merit and self-surrender, and call and response. May the merit gained in my acting thus go to the alleviation of the suffering of all beings. My personality throughout my existences. My possessions, and my merit in all three ways. I give up without regard to myself, for the benefit of all beings. Just as the earth and other elements are serviceable in many ways to the infinite number of beings inhabiting limitless space. So may I become that which maintains all beings, situated throughout space, so long as all have not attained to peace. feel ready, leaving in silence. Maybe get to the end or to the stairs before you chat. It quite easily carries along. If anyone can help put the chairs away, that would be greatly appreciated. And please feel free to take a photograph of the shrine.